By now, you know that strength training is important for dancers. At least I hope you know. So that brings us to the next question. How do you train to become a more explosive, more powerful dancer? Well, I'm going to tell you the elements that I personally feel are very important to implement to build the structure you need and to give you the best shot possible. So without further ado, we're going to get into it. Number one, plyometrics. What are plyometrics? Well, they are dynamic and explosive movements or exercises, and you will often see them as jumps or bounce. They work something called the short stretch cycle, which is very hard to say, which means that you're going from a muscle extension to a muscle contraction very quickly. So in normal human words, this means that if you are, for instance, jumping, your muscle extension is going to be when you're stretching out or when you're jumping up. Think of like stretching up, and then when you're landing, you're doing the muscle contraction, or you're coming into the shortened end of the cycle. So when you're repeating this, it goes from extension to contraction. So this is going to build a lot of muscle power, and it's also very good for athletic performance because we are jumping around, switching movements or switching directions all the time. Plyometrics are going to help strengthen your feet and ankles, and they're also going to strengthen your ligaments, which are fibrous bands that connect bone to bone and support the joints, and also your tendons, which are attached to the end of a muscle and connects the muscle to the bone. Typical plyometric exercises will be pogos, bounds, hops, hurdle hops, depth jumps. There are so many different variations, and you can alternate between light, medium, and high intensity. So you will typically do plyometrics in the beginning of a workout when you're nice and fresh and you can really give it your all and be as explosive as possible. You will start as a warm-up with light plyometrics, maybe light hops, bounds, those types of exercises, and you're going to repeat for about 20 to 30 reps, different variations. Then you're going to go over to medium, and then in the end, high intensity bounds. Next up, we have power. And this is the ability to produce force over a short period of time, which basically means moving weight quickly. You don't necessarily have to use weight. What is typical is from 0 to 70% of your 1 rep max, which means that if you were to perform just 1 rep of an exercise, that is the max amount of weight that you would use. So it really depends on the kind of power exercise that you're going to do, if you're going to do it with weight or without. It's important to note that you can't have too heavy weight because it's going to reduce the amount of power and effort you can put into the exercise, which is kind of the whole point. So if it's slowing you down too much, you're using too much weight. Typical exercises are going to be kettlebell swings, box jumps, and you also have Olympic lifts like hang power clean and snatches. What's important to note as well, I've seen a lot of times that people will ride plyometrics and you'll do maybe like a box jump. A box jump is a power exercise and not a plyometric exercise. When you're thinking plyos, think of several reps in a row, like you're hopping several times in a row. If you're doing maybe a depth jump to a box jump, that will be a plyometric. You have that in between with the short and stretch cycle. I had to make sure I had the right movement. While it's a box jump, you're typically going from a still position, jumping up to a box. That is going to be a power exercise. Power exercises are very good for dancers, especially when it comes to the Olympic lifts like hang power clean, because they're going to work something called triple extension. So you're extending your ankle joint, your knee joint, and your hip joint as you're getting the barbell up. This is something you will also do when you're doing a jump, coming from kind of like a little squat position, just to put it into that term, and then you're jumping up, you're extending through all those 3 joints. So when you're used to doing in a controlled environment, these power moves with a little bit more weight, or not necessarily weight, box jumps, for instance, aren't going to be with weight. I've never seen anyone do it with weight. Then you're used to having a little bit more load as you're doing these movements. The threshold is going to be higher, and then you're going to implement that when it comes to your dancing because you're used to doing it with a little bit more resistance, so it's going to feel easier to do it when you're in the dance class or doing choreography. So power exercises are typically going to be after you've done plyometrics. If you're doing plyometrics first, they're going to be before the strength part of your session because you don't want to be too tired to give your max and really produce a lot of force when doing these exercises. That's kind of the whole point. If you're too tired to do them, then you're not really getting out of those exercises what you want. Next up, we have compound lifts. Compound lifts are where you're using several muscle groups in an exercise. For instance, squats, you're using your quads, you're using your core, glutes, hamstrings. Even though not all of them are working as much or having as much emphasis on, you're still using more muscle groups. Bicep curl will be an isolation exercise as you're just working the biceps. So that's the difference between the two. These are often seen as like basic exercises, basic strength, but I would argue that they're actually functional as well, because we often see these crazy functional fitness exercises, which probably have their own time and place. But when you think of it, when you're doing these basic movements, they are movements you're doing in everyday life. For instance, when you're getting up of a chair, that will imitate a squat. When you're picking something up off the floor, that's a deadlift. If you are holding a baby or you're holding a cat or whatever and you're lifting it up, it's kind of like a bench press if you think about it. So these are movements that will build foundational strength, very important to implement for both dancing, but also for everyday life. So again, these are going to be like deadlifts, bench press, pull-ups, rows, all of these exercises that implement several muscle groups, and you will often use more weight on these, working on a rep range from 1 to 5 or 6 to 8, or you can do these in several different rep ranges. But I would typically tend to stay from 12 and down. Then we have bilateral movements, which will kind of focus on the same as the compound movements, but you're working one side at a time. Maybe you're doing one leg at a time, one arm at a time, shoulder press on one side at a time. And this is important both for muscular imbalances. If you have one side that is weaker than the other, then you have the opportunity to even things out a little bit more. But also in dancing, you're very rarely on both legs at the same time, both arms at the same time. You're going to move from one foot to the other, leaping from one leg. So it's important to be able to build strength on a single side at a time. It will also help with balance and stability. It will challenge your core, as you have to, if you're doing one arm, you have to stabilize so you're not falling over to the side. So it's very important to implement these things as well. Speaking of core, that is up next. So your core is responsible for both creating movement and resisting movement. And I know growing up when we were doing dance classes and we had the strength portion of it, we would do sit-ups, planks, and Russian twists. I don't think we did any other exercises, and push-ups. Those were like the workouts or the exercises we did to strengthen. And those are good exercises. I'm not bashing them at all, but our core does so much more. And you're just working in this plane, except for the Russian twists, which will be side to side. But we didn't always, at least I can speak for everyone, but I didn't really understand how to use my core to twist. You will often just use your arms to kind of tap the floor. So let's say, for instance, a pirouette. You're going to work anti-rotation in a pirouette because as you're turning, you're resisting going back with the movement. You're not, turning with the movement. You're staying still as you're spinning around. But if you're going to have a movement where you are throwing your entire body to one side, coming down and up, you will add more of a rotation to the exercise. So we need our core for so many more things than just having six-pack abs that are looking fine. That is the least important thing your core does. And your core is also not just your abs, it is actually your spine as well. And it is also those deep internal stabilizer muscles in your core. So we need to work the core in several planes. You need to work on resisting movement and you need to work on creating movement. I'm going to make a whole separate video on core because there's so much we could say, but at least I've touched upon it now. Finally, we have accessories. So these will be, muscle groups that you typically tend to neglect or forget. I know that I am guilty of this as well. So this will be your groin, hip flexors, abductors, which will be, my favorite example is aliens are coming to abduct your leg. I just love that example, even though it sounds stupid when I say it now, but it is lifting your leg away. And adductors, which will typically be your inner thigh, which will also be your groin, but bringing the leg together or adding the legs together, adduction. And also your calves, because we often do releves in class, but your calves, they can work in many different ways with a bent leg, with more resistance, more range of motion. A lot of these muscle groups, especially your adductors, are also important to stabilize, or they are used to stabilize. If you're doing a pirouette, again, your standing leg is going to stabilize and hold your weight, and then your inner thighs are going to be working. we don't give these a lot of attention, so they will often be prone to injury because they are not used to a lot of work and a lot of load. So when they do get used a lot, they're going to be overworked and overstrained. So we need to give them attention. We need to build up a threshold, make them strong enough to handle the demand so they don't feel overworked when you're in a dance setting. And also working them like they're supposed to be worked. Like I said, stabilizing the inner thigh instead of always just lifting it up, creating movement, actually getting used to just staying there, being stable. So I know we went through a lot right now and it feels overwhelming. I feel that so many times myself whenever you're scrolling Instagram and you see,
this is what you should be doing, these muscle groups you forget to train, this is how you should do this, 5 exercises you didn't know.
I mean, I'm probably going to say the same thing myself, but it does get overwhelming. So what I'm telling you, just as much as I'm telling myself, we just have to start somewhere. You have to pick a few things you want to focus on. Maybe you want to just get started with training. That is one thing to work on. Maybe you have a side that is stronger or weaker. That is something to work on. Anything is better than nothing. If you want to, maybe 10 minutes before class, you do a couple of plyometrics, maybe a couple of pogos, and then you do a core exercise. That is better than not doing anything at all. Then you're prepping your body, you're getting in this consistency. Maybe you're just choosing 5 exercises, and then you have 1 plyo, 1 power, 1 compound, 1 unilateral, and 1 core. It might feel like it's not enough, but it's still so much better than doing nothing. And then sticking to it. If you're changing it up every week, you're not going to get the results you want. You're not going to build the strength that you need. So you have to stick with it. I like to stick with it for 6 to 8 weeks. Sometimes even 12 can be nice. You don't have to switch up things as often as the media or especially social media tells you. That is not a thing. Consistency is important. You don't know if you're getting stronger or getting better if you're not consistent. Just imagine in a dance class, if you're going to practice pirouettes, but you don't do it every week, you don't know how you're going to get better. You can't track your progress either. So just a little food for thought. So I hope it was not too confusing. I hope it kind of broke down a little bit more the elements that you can use and need. You don't have to do all of them every time. You choose what you need to focus on right now and stick to it. And then you can switch it up later on. And if this feels like a lot, I know, but I am working on a little something that I really would want and need or needed when I was younger and a dancer. A lot of the reasons for why I'm doing all of this now is because I know how confused I was as a young dancer growing up and how I felt like I didn't find the answers I needed. So hopefully I can help someone else be less confused. I have a 4-week training program which will focus on plyometrics and just basic strength training. If you want just a little guide, a little help, I'll have that link down below. And if there are any questions or anything you want to, lay on me, then you are welcome to do so in the comments. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in the next one.